Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm a counsellor and I specialise in narcissistic personality disorder. Welcome to my channel, Children of Narcissists. I also have a website called childrenofnarciss.org.uk and there's lots of information over there about narcissistic personality disorder, what effects people who have that condition have on their children and people around them in general. In this video, I'd like to talk about attachment theory and narcissistic parents. So the way a narcissistic parent is can lead to quite a complicated attachment with their child. So let's go over to my website and have a look at an article that's called Attachment Theory and Narcissistic Personality Disorder. Attachment theory deals with the relationship between the primary caregiver and their baby. Research has shown that attachment styles can be observed and are established by the time a child is 1 year old and will persist into adulthood. So whichever attachment style we develop is established in that first year, and then we will keep those patterns in place throughout our lives. Unless we've done personal development or we've been in therapy or we understand them in some way, we've developed self-awareness around them and we've changed them. There are progressive stages of attachment. So there's pre-attachment, which is newborn to 6 weeks. Newborn infants act in a way that attracts adults, such as crying, smiling, cooing, and making eye contact. They're not attached to their mothers yet, but are soothed by the presence of others. Attachment in making lasts from 6 weeks to 6 to 8 months. Here, infants begin to develop a sense of trust in their mothers, in that they can depend on her in times of need. They are soothed more quickly by their mother and smile more often when next to her. Clear-cut attachment. This takes place from 6 to 8 months to 18 months to 2 years. At this age, attachment is established. The mother is preferred over anyone else, and the child experiences separation anxiety when she leaves. The intensity a child feels will be due to their temperament and the way in which they are responded to and soothed. So this is nature and nurture together, isn't it? Formation of reciprocal relationships, 18 months onwards. Separation anxiety declines after this age as the infant can now understand when his mother is leaving and when she'll be coming back, and therefore a sense of security has developed. Infants will tend to attach primarily to one caregiver, even if there are multiple ones. So they have a preference of having a favourite person over everyone else. Generally will tend to be the mother, and then the father would be the secondary caregiving figure. In a typical setup, that would happen. So then the attachment styles. There are currently 4 recognised attachment styles. They are named ambivalent, avoidant, disorganised and secure. Secure attachments account for around 60% of the general population, and 40% of the general population have unhealthy styles of attachment. So this is pretty high. This is around half at least of people. The 4 attachment styles are as follows. So different theories and different writers have different names for them, or the names have changed over time. So one of them is known as ambivalent or insecure or preoccupied attachment. So these children become very distressed when a parent leaves. Ambivalent attachment style is considered uncommon. At times the parent may have been warm and affectionate, and at other times irritable and distant. This means that the primary caregiver could not be relied upon to be stable. So the child doesn't know where they are with this one, basically. So they're ambivalent. So they need their mother or their primary caregiver, and they're not sure what reaction they're going to get. Is their mother going to be annoyed and irritated with them? Or is she going to be warm and affectionate and take care of their needs, meet their needs? Avoidant, dismissive attachment. Children with an avoidant attachment tend to avoid parents or caregivers, showing no preference between a caregiver and a complete stranger. This attachment style might be the result of an abusive or neglectful caregiver or caregivers, and children who are punished for relying on a caregiver will learn to avoid seeking help in the future. So this could be an angry mother, so you're thirsty again, you're hungry again, you need something, you've fallen over, you've hurt your knee, all these kind of things that are happening all the time to children. And then that caregiver gets really angry, very angry, dismissive, abusive when you're wanting something from them. So this makes those children try to be as distant as possible and to need help as little as possible. So they'll probably become very self-reliant and, feel unsafe in asking for help. Disorganized attachment. These children display a confusing mix of behaviour and seem confused or disorientated. They may avoid or resist the parent. As adults, they may exhibit symptoms of PTSD and dissociative symptoms. So this would be where you have complex PTSD. Caregivers will have been frightening to the child. So frightening or frightened parents, caregivers can cause this disorganized attachment. So a frightened parent might be a parent that's in an abusive relationship. Let's say a mother who's in a relationship with a narcissist, let's say, for example. A parent who is having mental illness issues, or a parent who has their own trauma that's never been processed. So they're very triggered, they're very unstable in their own moods. So this affects their relationship with the children. This results in an internal struggle between wanting to attach to others and being in defense. So being in an impossible place, actually, and needing to attach to someone who feels dangerous or who is dangerous. This results in an internal struggle between wanting to attach to others, or needing to attach to a primary caregiver for survival, and being in defense, so defending yourself against that caregiver. So this is being in a really difficult position. And secure attachment. Children who can depend on their caregivers show distress when separated and joy when reunited. They feel assured that the caregiver will always return. When frightened, securely attached children are comfortable seeking reassurance from caregivers. So how does this apply to children of narcissists? So children of narcissists are most likely to have a disorganized attachment style. People with NPD have usually come from a home with at least one parent who also has NPD, and therefore they are also likely to have disorganized attachments or dissociative disorder. It's on the spectrum of dissociation, where you would find complex PTSD and personality disorders. So they're also very triggered, very unstable in their moods. They're in defense a lot. Their defenses, of course, are very fight-based. So they're based in that fight part of the defenses, which can be haughty, devaluing, angry, raging. And this is what causes all the damage. A child with a disorganized attachment will stop seeking closeness to the parent figure and will attempt to handle distress alone. They will attempt to keep the attachment system deactivated to avoid the frustration and distress caused by the parental figure being emotionally unavailable. So this is really interesting. So what can happen for children of narcissists, people with a disorganized attachment, is they might have those feelings happening subconsciously or consciously, that feeling of wanting to be close to someone, wanting to be cared for or reassured. So then other parts of the defences will come in to shut that down. So let's say a fight part of the defences will come in, and they'll be kind of quite aggressive. You're an idiot, you're weak, you're needy, rely on yourself, don't be so pathetic. This kind of narrative to dissociate from that attach part and to stay in that fight part to minimise distress. This leads to the denial of the attachment needs and therefore an avoidance of closeness, intimacy, and being dependent in relationships. And they will be striving for self-reliance and independence. In adulthood, this can look like a strong push and pull. So a pull towards other people, wanting to be close to a partner, and then a push away from them. So it can feel emotionally intolerable, it can feel uncomfortable, distressing, it can feel weak, it can feel really dangerous. So to create that distance, things might happen, like an argument might be created so that there's no speaking going on. There's no talking, so there can't be any intimacy, no closeness. It can be being absorbed in looking at something on the internet, on the phone. There can be going into an addiction, addictive behaviours. So there can be drinking, there can be drugs, there can be going to play golf all day. There can be some kind of avoidant behaviour where you're avoiding your partner, creating physical or emotional distance because it feels safer than being close to someone. Securely attached children have a wide window of tolerance. This is the mental space in which a person can function and handle their emotions without becoming overwhelmed. Children with disorganised attachment styles will have a narrow window of tolerance. This means there's not a large mental space in which they can function effectively because they're triggered into fight, flight, freeze or submit or attach defences. This means they find it hard to soothe themselves as well. And this is where addictions can come in, as mentioned earlier. They, as teens and adults, will often become emotionally overwhelmed and will manage this with alcohol or drugs or other addictive behaviours. Please see addictions. I have a page on my website which is talking about addictions. So attachment styles. Secure attachment. This means the mother is quick, sensitive and consistent. The child feels secure and is happy and exploring. As for their needs, they believe their needs will be met. In an avoidant attachment, the mother is distant or disengaged. The child is not very explorative and is emotionally distant. And in terms of their needs, they subconsciously believe that their needs probably won't be met. In an ambivalent attachment, the mother is inconsistent. Sometimes she's attentive and sometimes she's distant. The child feels anxious, insecure and angry. And in terms of their needs, they cannot rely on their needs being met. And in a disorganised attachment, the mother is extreme. She's frightening, she's frightened, she's passive. Or she can be very aggressive if she's a narcissistic mother. The child feels depressed, angry, non-responsive and passive. And regarding their needs, they feel severely confused with no strategy to get their needs met. So what happens when our primary caregiver is a narcissist? Because the narcissistic personality is so unstable, this means that strategies may work on one day and then not on another day. It's like an emotional roller coaster where nothing is solid. The foundations of the relationship are not solid. Life isn't solid. What can make a narcissist angry one day can make them laugh the next day. So there's no strategy to get needs met for a child that's in that situation. It's really confusing. And this is the root of the development of complex PTSD. Attachment patterns in adulthood. The attachment style a child develops will stay with the child into adulthood and become a set behavioural pattern. This will lead to the relationship style the child had with a primary caregiver being recreated in adulthood. This is why we go on to marry narcissists if we've had a narcissistic parent. It doesn't always happen, but it happens quite a lot. The attachment patterns become internalised and shape how individuals see themselves and others. So what happens in childhood for a child of a narcissist is that they see their own needs as unimportant. Other people's needs are more important. And their kind of character is shaped to fit that relationship in adulthood. So we could look at it as the way we develop our defences is where we feel comfortable in adulthood. So we might meet a narcissistic person, see them as a potential partner, and then that relationship ends up happening because it feels comfortable. We know what we're doing in that situation. We know how to defend ourselves. Whereas we can feel uncomfortable in a relationship with someone who might be very caring because we don't know how to handle that, we're not used to it, and we don't have coping strategies for that. Insecure parental attachment may lead to increased levels of stress hormones, negative views of themselves and others, and poor regulation of their emotions and behaviour. Failure of the caregiver to provide safety and protection can also lead to problems in cognition, attention, learning and relationships. Romantic relationships may also be affected if the attachment relationship with the caregiver was poor. Research shows that fearfully attached individuals are more likely to interpret events as stressful. Insecurely attached individuals show higher levels of depression, distress, and post-traumatic stress symptoms than traumatized people who exhibit a secure-based attachment. So that's really interesting, isn't it? So someone that has no secure attachment with their primary caregiver and then goes on to have secure attachment with others, if they go through trauma and develop PTSD, they don't have such high levels of depression, distress, and PTSD symptoms as someone who's insecurely attached, who comes from a traumatic background, who's developed those coping mechanisms in those really early years rather than having PTSD in their later years. Very interesting. A disorganized attachment style is associated with later psychological difficulties and dissociative experiences, which is your complex PTSD. If you'd like to read more about this, there are some articles on complex PTSD on my website, and I've also done a video called Clues That You Might Have Complex PTSD. Because some people don't know that they have PTSD. They think, that's just me. I'm just someone who drinks. I'm just someone who has nightmares. I'm just someone who's anxious all the time. But these are symptoms of PTSD. And some people manage to suppress so much of their emotional life that they don't even really know that they're that anxious. So, yeah, there's my video on clues that you may have PTSD, and then some articles on my website that are all about this issue as well, if you'd like to go there and have a look at some more information. Thank you for watching and take care. Goodbye.